So this is a different kind of video. I lost a drone in this area about a week before this flight, so I kitted up another drone to go search for it. So here we go. The sort of extra blip you see before takeoff is a function of the Radiomaster Pocket. It's got an off-on switch that's quite twitchy. So I'm taking off, heading out that way, and one of the reasons I couldn't find the drone, even though I knew roughly where it was because I had a beeper on it, which I'd failed to activate. It's one self-contained, it's the VFly beacon with its own battery, and the idea is that it hits something, or it's been out for 5 minutes, and it starts to beep. So it's not reliant on the battery that's in the drone, the way a lot of the others are. So I'm heading off, and I suddenly realise that on the rescue drone, I haven't activated the buzzer, so that's why this first flight is very short. And I'm heading back for a hasty landing so I can pop the button and get back in the air again. In fact, it's such a hasty landing that I come down a bit too quickly with a predictable result, but no harm done, fortunately. Other thing I noticed, I picked up a bird escort. So I quickly turn the thing upside down, pop the button on the back, and get ready to go again. So I just put it on the wall to do that. Incidentally, that's the new boat ramp at Sutherland's Beach, south of Adelaide. They've extended the ramps. So here we are for another go. This time it was the old throttle lip that I finally got used to. And we're finally in search mode. Of course, by this time I'm somewhat flustered, so I'm flying faster than I should be for doing a search pattern over the area where the drone was lost. And the reason and you can see the shadows of a couple of birds following me. Fortunately, they didn't sort of attack the drone, they just provided an escort. The reason for doing the flight was we did a thorough ground search, couldn't find anything. And we suddenly thought, well, maybe it's hung up on the top of one of those bushes that we couldn't easily see from the ground. So if we cruise over it at low speed, certainly lower speed than this flight turned out to be, there's more chance we'll pick it up, because it's a black drone with 4 white tri-blade props. So if it did land flat on top of a bush, it should be fairly noticeable from the air, even if we couldn't see it when we were on the ground. So you can see the birds escorting me with their shadows, and that's a reasonable view of the boat ramp. I think there's an extra launching facility and a little bit where boats can tie up after they've been launched, but a very popular place. So somewhere in this landscape a drone went down. In fact, I could only pinpoint roughly where it went down later on when I had a look at the footage from the ground station. Before that we thoroughly searched the wrong area, because a well-meaning tradie had said, hey, I saw that drone go by and I think it went that way. It was only carefully looking at the footage from the ground station later that I could see, oh, in fact it flew low through there and then recovered and came more over this area here that I'm searching. So you've got to expect this sort of thing when you're flying drones. This was a hardware failure. Normally I'm losing things because I push things a bit, but on this case it was just something that failed in flight. But I wasn't too worried because I nursed it back over land. It was fairly low, but for some reason we never found it. So this was a last-ditch effort. Lovely day, probably a little bit breezy, not ideal for search conditions. So between feeling somewhat flustered and a bit of a breeze, that's why the flying is not as smooth as I would have wished for. Coming around again, extending it to the other side of the path, but I think it came down within sight of either of those little shelter sheds there. But I thought, well, I'd just come across this way a bit just in case it tumbled a bit. And that's the path down to the boat ramp. soon. So, no sign of it, so gave up at this point. Time to land again. Through the miracle of video editing, I make this landing meter. It wasn't. It was upside down like the last one.